1 year into the future, Gomes strolls boldly down the boulevard, wearing his Steadicam dual-mounted rifle system, barrels tracking precisely as he scans from possible target to possible target, hands free, ready to reload, and flanked by 2 of his own crew. Hey, it's the Chief Bonding with Board Games and RPGs, back with the Neuralink RPG. First of all, there's a thunderstorm going on, so if we lose power or something, that'll be the reason why. We'll see if you hear thunder. 2, you can go look at my playlist if you like this style of game, because in the playlist I have AMC The Walking Dead, I have an Apocalyptic Twilight 2000, I have a Blade Runner that is probably one of my most popular, I have a Live Maze Rats that's in a fantasy world. I can't say it. So there's things in the playlist to go check, but let's get back into the action. So where we left off last time is that Gomer's taken off his Oculus. He's uploaded Grok 4.0 AI, and it's messing with him mentally. He's really struggling with the Neuralink and the app Grok upload, which all makes sense because he's doing it solo. He's not doing it the way it's supposed to be done, but when he takes it off, there stands Jonah, the janitor, who I'm NPC based off of an actual guy I knew when I worked as a school resource officer. So kind of that streetwise, he's now 50, hardworking, blue-collar guy. So Jonah's confronted Gomer, who quickly spilled the beans on himself. And I knew Jonah's answer immediately. It would have been, "You're a bad liar, but you shouldn't have told me the truth." And I think Gomer's like, "Well, you kind of walked in." He's like, "Yeah, but if you're going to tell on yourself this quick, you're not going to be using this facility for long," which is just a flat-out truth. And I think Jonah, just looking at him, says, "Why you do this to yourself?" And Gomer's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "This. You look like shit. Your upload looks like you darn near killed yourself. All for what? What are you trying to do? You already do your dream job. I see you in there working with those little robots and fiddling with stuff and putting stuff together. You don't talk to nobody. You seem like you like hanging out in your lab." He's like, "I do like hanging out in the lab." "Well, why you do this?" Which is good. I think Gomer's like, well, here's the deal. Gomer's still a bad liar. And I think he says what we talked about in the very beginning. He says, "I'm never better." Jonah's like, "What?" "What you talking about? Never better. Better than what? What are you trying to be better than?" And I think Gomer's like, "Anybody. Look where you work. Look what you do. What do you need? You don't need nothing." So this is interesting. I actually didn't think it would go down this road. So Jonah's explaining, what do you mean it's hard? You're doing your job, you make your money. So Jonah clearly doesn't have the, I like this. Jonah is looking at Gomer and seeing he's got everything. Okay. I think Gomer says, "I don't know, I'm always in the shadows. I'm always second fiddle. I'm always the odd man out." Jonah says, "Isn't that what you like?" I think Gomer says, "Sometimes." Yeah, that would be right. And Jonah's like, "Man, you're confusing as shit." Sorry, I'm going to continue with the language. The guy I knew dropped a lot of language. He says, I think if you had all the people around you that I guess you think you want, you would hate it. But what is this about? I think Gomer simply says, "I'll be able to learn faster. I'll be able to think faster. I'll be better." I think Jonah looks at him and just says, "I think you're scared. I think that's why you holed up in that little room with your machines, and you don't like anybody coming in. I think it's just fear. You scared. You scared. And this one's easy. Gomer's like, what do you know? You're just a janitor. Ooh, boy. And Jonah gets that deep, dark, brutal, pissed look on his face, reaches over, grabs that mop that was leaning up against the couch, says, you say crap like that, I'll shove this broom so far up your ass, you be shitting splinters. I'll put your head in that mop bucket and hold it down until you puke. Wow. I think Jonah, or I think Gomer's like, what? And Jonah's like, don't disrespect what I do or who I am. And I think Gomer's still like, what? Yeah. And he says, what kind of special training you got to do to figure out a loser like you? And I think Gomer's like defeated. He feels like a loser. And he just kind of defeats and deflates. And I think that bugs Jonah. He says, now see, look at this. Come back with something, man. Don't just take that. You got to come back. That's perfect. Because, yeah, he's like, come on, man. You just keep doing the wrong thing. I think Jonah then leans in a little bit, kind of lets the stick go a little bit. That was a little bit too much alliteration, and says, seriously, man, what are you going to gain from doing this? You already got control of your arms and your legs. So most of, if not all of the patients Jonah's seen get the Neuralink, they're quadra or paraplegics. Or they've even had other issues, maybe even with blindness and some different things that Neuralink's working on. Again, it's never been used on somebody as a augmentation device. It's been used to help those with severe, like, medical disabilities, physical disabilities. And at this point, I think Gomer explains, man, do you have any idea the possibilities if I can get this to work right? He's like, no, I don't. Right now, I have to communicate with the computer via my fingers and a mouse and the keyboard and the screen. If I can direct link in and get the speed up, he says right now Grok 4 is moving at trillions of bits a second, and I can process it, what, 15, 20 bits per second? I think Jonah's like, what are you talking about? Gomer says, it's almost like me or you trying to have a conversation with a tree. The amount of queries I could pose to Grok 4 if I had a direct link at speed is superhuman. The amount of information I could access, the computation I could process, the machines I could control directly, it will be magical. I think Jonah's like, all right, well, that makes a little bit of sense. So it'll make you smarter. He says it'll make everything easier, faster, magical. I think Jonah says, but what you gonna do with it? Gomer's like, what? Jonah's like, what are you going to do with it? What are you gonna do? Hack somebody's computer? Gomer's like, maybe. For what? I don't know. To learn stuff. Why would you hack somebody's computer to learn stuff? I don't know. I think Jonah says, I think he starts thinking, what, you're going to, like, steal people's credit cards? Like, no, I'm not going to steal people's credit cards. We're going to hack a bank? No, I'm not going to hack a bank. I don't think I'd hack a bank. I think so. Well, tell me something you'd like to do. And Gomer says, well, I think it would make me like one of the best online gamers out there. Jonah's like, what the hell? You going through all this so that you're some kind of famous online gamer. That's dumb as hell. I go back, grab that broom. I think Gomer's like, the possibilities are endless. I mean, I'm sure there's ways I could even help people. And he's like, you already help people. Look what you do here with this machine. Look at the number of people who've been helped. Boy, I don't understand what you're talking about. You took a lot of risk to put that chip in your head. All right. I think there's a connection there. I imagine Jonah pulls out just like some aspirin and says, I can tell you still got a headache. Why don't you take some aspirin? He throws him a bottle that's coming off of his rack that he's got. I assume he's like replacing bottles at different stations or whatever. And tosses him the aspirin bottle, and he takes a couple. And I think he settles out a little bit. And Jonah says, what are you trying to do with this machine? And I think Gomer says, if I can get good with Grok 4 and using the app, I truly believe I'll work my way to superhuman powers. I think Jonah says, now that I can get behind. So we're going to add in, not only is Jonah, let's just come out, Jonah is going to be added in as a character, potential crew, we don't know yet, but there's a connection there. I think the thread is definitely just continued improvement. But on the chaos factor, as things go easily or well for Gomer, the chaos factor would go down and it would be less chaotic. Things are not going well for Gomer. I'm going to move it from a 5 up to a 6. So Gomer's going to go up to a 6, meaning things are going to be a little bit more chaotic for him. I'll continue to look at this interaction between Jonah and Gomer. I can tell already the way Jonah is starting to function is almost like that, almost like, I was almost going to say Obi-Wan, but not the Jedi powers, but maybe that wisdom. He's been around the block. He's operated in a world that Gomer has zero knowledge of at all. I think that is a very interesting mode that Gomer is going to need, because he's stepping into like a dark underground world. Yeah. So the plan is, I'm going to go ahead and I think on that I'm going to even attach loosely Jonah as crew. He's going to go on a crew sheet just as someone that they can relate with. I think before that ends, I think Gomer, just to cinch it, Gomer asks Jonah, are you going to report me? And Jonah looks at him and says, snitches get stitches. Now, some of you think that's fake. That's true. I'll give you a little side story and then we'll get out of here. I was working, I'm a supervisor, law enforcement, police department. Individual called in to the station. Secretary sent him back on the phone. I answered the phone. They said someone wanted a supervisor. I said, the supervisor, how can I help you? The individual said he had an interaction with a cop and he wasn't treated right. And I said, all right, sir, go ahead and give me your name. And if you can just detail out the complaint, I can address it. And the line got quiet. I could tell by the tone it sounded like a black man. I do work in a minority area. And I said, hello. And he literally said, I ain't no snitch. And he hung up. I was like, hello? So I guarantee some interaction out there on the street, probably an officer was rude or said something rude. That probably would have been, we have a policy for rude conduct. But as soon as it was, hey, what's your name? Let me get down the complaint. I'll address it. It was snitches get stitches. He didn't say that, but immediately he was like, I ain't no snitch. Bye. Click, and it was gone. So that mentality, especially with someone who's been through the street, is true. And that puts him on as possible crew. So at the very least, I think he's sympathetic to Gomer. He sees Gomer's in weird, uncharted territory. And he's already lent him a little bit of help with some aspirin and a bottle of water and some sage advice. That partnership will continue. So we'll wind this down with, I think Jonah tells Gomer, hey, you need to go home, get some sleep, and maybe keep whatever you just put in your head off for a bit. If you're lucky, it won't kill you. I think Gomer says, I think you're right. The aspirin hasn't kicked in. He's still in some pain. I think Jonah says, hey, make sure you eat something before you go to bed. You need to keep up your strength. A little bit of a mother hen in there, and Gomer leaves. So I can hear thunder rolling in here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. To tease in episode 3, we'll open the scene back at Gomer's apartment, his flat. So we're going to get to see what his apartment's like. I'm picturing his different evolutions of surgical machines are kind of all around his place. And there is a training protocol that I think we will dive into as he begins to interface with Grok 4.0. The app he'll be working with, I think we'll spend a little bit of time with. He's going to be playing, I forget the name, but the grid game, where you've got a grid and the little grid lights up and you think, okay, I'm moving my right index finger and the Neuralink picks up the signal from the neuron and then starts to communicate that this means move the cursor this way or that way, left, right, up, down. So I think we'll get into some of that just to explain how that works. All right, Chief, Bonding with Board Games. If you like this at all, future and weird, I know. Neuralink, the RPG, having fun in the future. Go ahead and like, subscribe. I do have a Patreon account. If you really like it, you can go look at it there. It's Bonding with Board Games on Patreon. But also go look at my playlist. I've got a bunch of other solo and co-op games that I've been playing using Mythic Emulator and some of the other tools here. Again, thank you for tuning in and see you in the future. Bye.